Matthew, the tax collector that Jesus called to be his disciple and who later wrote the gospel we call Matthew, was also called Levi. Some people think that this is a clue that Matthew Levi was also a Levite, as in one born into the tribe of Israel, set apart for the priesthood and service in the temple of the Lord. If that's the case, then Matthew Levi, the Levite, is an example of two different kinds of namesakes. Jacob's third son by his first wife Leah was named Levi. He's the reason Matthew was called Levi. He was the first, and his name was passed down over generations. It's a good Jewish name. We don't have a very clear idea of what it means. Anyway, Levi was also the first of the tribe of Levi who took their name from him, just the way the other tribes took their names from Levi's brothers. But Levi's tribe was destined to be different. Levi teamed up with Simeon to get revenge on Shechem and his people for having defiled their sister Dinah. They weren't punished per se for their vengeful tempers, but when Jacob prophesied over each of his sons on his deathbed, he did not bless them. He said, "Simeon and Levi are brothers, their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly, for they have killed men in their anger and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger, so fierce, and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob. I will disperse them in Israel." This prophecy played out for the Simeonites in the allotment of the Promised Land in the way they were surrounded and subsumed by the tribe of Judah. But for the Levites, things went very differently. Starting with a great-grandson of Levi, with Moses' brother Aaron, God established the priesthood, and the rest of the tribe was set apart as the caretakers of the tabernacle and later the temple. And one of the reasons for that appointment was that the Levites had been willing to raise their swords as God's instrument of discipline on the other tribes at the foot of Mount Sinai when the Israelites worshipped the golden calf they had convinced Aaron to make for them. In other words, because of Levi's part in getting vengeance on the Shechemites and because of the Levites' part in getting vengeance on the Israelites, the tribe was dedicated to serve directly before God all the way until a Levite named Levi found a more lucrative job as a tax collector, but was called to leave that to be better known as Matthew and have the job of disciple and evangelist, for which the compensation package was frankly pitiful. And it all started back with the first Levi, Jacob and Leah's son. He was understandably vengeful, and the consequences reached all his posterity to Matthew Levi and beyond. So what was it? Punishment? Discipline? Or was it a reward? Compensation? That all his children should be set apart as servants of the worship of the true God. And clearly we are supposed to understand that from Jacob's prophecy as a result of Levi's act of vengeance and from God's appointment of the Levites as a result of theirs, too. Is ministry before the Lord a blessing earned by good behavior or a curse upon sinners? Can it be both? Don't we want good candidates to view participation in ministry as a blessing that comes along with their other gifts? And don't we want sinners to turn from their sin and serve the Lord instead? Or does that mean it's neither? That being invited to participate in God's ministry is only a result of His merciful grace. It cannot be earned or deserved, and so it can be neither a reward nor a curse. Levi's anger was cursed, and the Levites' devotion to the Lord was blessed, and the result of all of the above was the establishment of a form of ministry that would always point to the curse of sin and the blessing of faith. They tended the temple and sacrificed the animals the people brought as a symbol of the vengeful wrath of God being placated by innocent sacrifice. everyone named after Levi in either their given or tribal name got to be a part of the ministry that was a shadow of Jesus' ministry. Jesus' service, Jesus' sacrifice, and Jesus' atonement, and Jesus' placation of the vengeful and just wrath of God against the curse of sin. Jesus' grace and forgiveness for the sinner, including but not limited to Levi's namesakes, but not limited to just them, including you and me, and Matthew, and the first Levi, the son of Jacob and Leah. You and I are dust and breath, loved by God, bought by Jesus. This podcast is written and produced by me, Ethan Cherney, a Wells pastor serving Our Savior Lutheran Church in Pomona, California. Get in touch on Facebook at Dust and Breath Pod, on Twitter at Dust Breath Pod, or by emailing dustandbreathpod@gmail.com. Outro music arranged and performed by Mr. Peter Shawy, who is like the feet of a deer. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you could leave a review in iTunes or just share an episode on social media, I'd really appreciate it. It's the only way other people can find the show. Now, go do what God made you to do. Be who God called you to be. Go see what God can do with dust and breath and faith in Jesus, his Son.